Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing alright. So this week we're going to be covering mixing mortar. So by the end of this chapter, you can see some of the things that they talk about. Unfortunately, because we're not in lab, you won't be able to mix mortar by hand, but we can go over some of the requirements. So obviously mixing mortar is an important job. It's what holds brick, block together, allows you to do stucco, it allows you to parge walls, and things along those lines. Like it says, when a small amount is needed, it can be mixed in a wheelbarrow or a small mortar box, which we learned about that. And today we'll be talking more about mechanical mixers and some of the safety hazards that you may have with those. Assembling and storing materials. Again, this is something that we would demonstrate in lab, but we don't have lab. Standard proportions for mortar mixers. So generally when you mix mortar, it will be at a 3-to-1 proportion. That's ideal. That's 3 parts of sand to 1 part cement. As it says here, some are manufactured, bagged, and delivered to the job site. A lot of these will be your spec mixes, which we'll talk about later. And then masonry cement, those are the ones that you mix by hand. The other ones are generally done in a factory. And you can see some of the requirements that they have while you're mixing it. This step here is important, blending the dry materials together. When you dry mix it, it gives your mortar a uniform mix, and it prevents clumping of sand, which is damp sometimes, and little pockets of cement. So you start off with a uniform mixture before you start uh, throwing water into the mix. Again, continuing the mixing process, combine it. Uh, this would be easier demonstrated in lab, and some of you will get to see it next year. Some of you already have seen it. Now, mixing mortar with the power mixer, these 3 components are very important. So they do increase speed and save labor with how fast you're able to do it because you're no longer mixing it by hand. This is very important. It's extremely hazardous. Your arm can get caught in there with the rotating assembly, so you can get it pinched, you can get it cut off, and if you're not careful, it can result in death. What's nice is the efficiency because you can use single or double batches. So it's not just one. You can see this guy dumping it into a wheelbarrow, and it makes it easier than having it in a box or a pan and having to do it by hand with a hoe. Always clean your tools, regardless of what it is. And like this says, start it in out of gear, so it would be a neutral. Don't have to be too concerned with the operation of it because we don't have one in the lab. If we did need one, we can go up to the masonry lab and borrow theirs, or take you up there and show you how to mix it in theirs. Now, the reason I say not to let it sit longer than 5 minutes is because it can stick to the insides of it, and obviously it makes it more difficult to clean. And at the bottom it says always wear safety glasses, which that's obvious because of the splashing. You could get cement and sand in your eyes, which you definitely don't want. In this portion here, where it says about sitting for longer than 2.5 hours, the reason for that is that once cement gets wet, it undergoes a process called hydration, and it's a chemical reaction that won't stop. So if you have it sitting for longer than that, it'll set on you and it won't work as well. This portion right here, this is important. If you have a 2.5 hour time window, obviously you want it to stop for lunch or quitting time. And I'll continue this in part 2.